I think a lot of people look at it the wrong way. Rough numbers. Let's say you buy a house for $100,000, right? You put $10,000 down. In 2 years, it's worth 110. You think to yourself, oh, I made 10%. No, you didn't. You put 10 down, you made 10, you doubled your money. It's the law of big numbers. I mean, it's the average person's most effective use of leverage is really what it is. And you can do that with these low money down programs. I mean, there's some sacrifices you have to make. You have to live in it. You have to deal with tenants, all that. But talk about a way to compound wealth. There's no better method to do it right now. Ahoy to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm your guest, Daniel Baker, and with me, as always, are your hosts, Tom and Mark.
Ahoy. And we're not being funny there. That's we found out his wife's from the Czech Republic, and that's how you say hello.
And we also found out he only knows 2 words. And the other word he's not allowed to say on here. So.
Yeah, so, good enough. So, man, this was a fantastic episode. I just love all these scrappy stories. Seeing Lance go through it now, too, like it makes me so happy.
Man, he had me in stitches a couple of these points. And just the way he's good at delivering a story, too, man. So, like, that's part of it. And he's got such a great story. So, between the two, like, I don't know if you saw me. I was falling back in my chair. Like, that was hilarious.
Yeah. So, a couple things to reference here. So, we've mentioned Triton Realty a couple times. I know they're friends of ours. Fritzl, we looked up episode 22. He was an original. If you want to go back and listen to that and see how bad we were. And then we had Harrison on episode 221. So both great episodes and just, great. We had James on too. I'm sorry, I'm leaving him out. I don't have his episode number pulled up, but we've had Triton on multiple times. They provide a ton of value to our listeners.
Yeah, for sure.
So we were also talking about meetups. Got to see this guy yesterday at NSBC, and then we were just kind of BSing. He also brought up Jason Wagner, who's been a guest of the show, just from going to a meetup. That's when you found out about our guest found out about that FEMA money when everything flooded on the north side.
He talked about that in a podcast episode, right?
That was episode 246.
Yeah, so this what he just told us was that he went to a meetup, met Jason randomly, heard his story, followed him online, saw him post about this $25,000 thing, and then was able to go and qualify and get the $25,000. So from a single meetup, he made $25,000.
Yeah, just go get yourself out there. You find the right person. You might find that one deal. Like it's just a lot of times it's nothing and it's handshakes, but every once in a while you find gold.
Yep.
So, all right, what's our housing provider tip?
All right, so our housing provider tip of the week is, best practices around carpet. Carpet kind of sucks these days. It only lasts so long. Especially if you have a tenant that's tough on it. But if you are keeping carpet in your unit, best practice would be to clean it. Now, for the smaller housing providers, especially in the suburbs, you could tie something together where at move-in, have one of the requirements be that they professionally clean the carpet before they move out, and they have to give you the receipt. They can't go rent the machine at Jewel. They have to give you a Stanley Steamer receipt or some sort of vendor to make sure the right equipment, everything was done right. Or you could have some sort of agreement that they're going to forfeit $150 of their deposit at the end, or you could charge them back if you're in the city. But it's a lot easier to do in the suburbs. But in the city, you could also charge a non-refundable fee up front for the pet and put that towards pet cleaning the carpet because they have pets. So either way, you probably should do carpet cleaning when you're turning over the unit for the next person. And if you have pets, you especially should, especially when it comes to allergies and all that. I've had it a few times where we've skipped it, or I let the owner say, I don't want to spend the $300 on it, and the new tenant moves in and the kid's got allergies. Once the kid's got allergies, you're done. You have to figure something out for them. So don't give them any excuse. If they come back and say have allergies, you can say you showed, you professionally cleaned it. So make sure you handle carpet properly during turnovers, or switch out to plank flooring.
So I know Dad at my kid's school does carpet cleaning. Okay. So if anyone needs a referral, can easily get that out there. All right. Today's guest, you bringing him in? Am I bringing him in?
You're bringing him in.
I'm bringing him in. All right. Yeah. So house hacker extraordinaire. I think there's no other way to describe it. Like we have some fun stories here. Burning the bridges, leaving it all behind. Has his license with Triton Realty. Owner and founder of Teton Properties. And without further ado, Daniel Baker. Glad to finally get you on the show here.
Thank you.
Got to see you yesterday at the NSBC event.
Yep.
All three of us got to hang out there. How long have you been part of going to that group?
So I started going there about 2.5 years ago. Great organization. Obviously, they do everything at lunch. We have some great speakers. Learned a ton. It's been about 2.5 years there.
Yeah, I thought it was so cool. We interviewed a whole bunch of people and all the feedback, and it's just such a community that you guys have over there that you're part of. And you're in walking distance. It's right by your house.
Oh yeah, no excuse to ever miss.
You
one.
literally walked home yesterday. That was hilarious.
That's awesome.
All right, let's start in here. When we talked offline, you getting started in Chicago here is a pretty interesting story.
Yeah.
So just talk about I think you drove overnight one time for an interview. You're lying about your dress to get in here. Like,
Yeah,
talk
so
about trying to get into Chicago.
I was working in Memphis. I was working for FedEx right out of college, and I had the only way to get an interview in Chicago, I figured out at the time, was to put my friend's address on my resume. So these companies would think that I lived in Chicago. And I wasn't trying to lie, but it's the only way they would talk to me. So they'd call me up, on a Tuesday and say, hey, can you be here Wednesday afternoon for an interview? I'd say, no problem. So I'd work till 4 o'clock at my desk job in Memphis, tell my boss I had to leave a little early, and then I would drive up, get here to 2 a.m., sleep for, as long as I could, get up, interview, and then drive back, get home at 2 in the morning, and then go to work the next day. And after, I think I did 3 or 4 of these, I got a job, and I'm getting a job at Marcus and Millichap in out by O'Hare when they had that office out there.
Were you applying for all commercial brokerages?
Anything. I wanted to get back into real estate. I probably applied to 300 jobs, and this was the only one I got. This is 2009, so there weren't exactly a lot of real estate jobs back then.
Oh, there was very little.
Why real estate? It's in. It's not a great time for it. It's tough to get in. Like, why were you so persistent?
I knew I wanted to do real estate since I was a kid. I always wanted to do it. Just what I studied in undergrad. I worked in Memphis. Initially, I was supposed to be doing real estate, but then the financial crisis happened, and they put me in a sourcing job, which I hated. So I wanted to get back into real estate. So the catch was, though, with this job is it only paid $25,000 a year. So I was in Memphis, and that's with no benefits. So I'm in Memphis, and I'm making 70, and I move up here, and I'm making 25. So I move up here, I have no money.
But dude, talk about that jump, because you talk about it now and laugh about it. If you polled our listeners who would do this, it's a very low percentage.
Yeah, I just, I was 23. I wanted to be in Chicago. My girlfriend at the time was here. My friends were here, and I knew I wanted to get back into real estate. And this was literally the only job offer I got after probably 300 applications, and they thought I lived in Lakeview. So I moved here. This is 2000 into 2009, maybe 2010. I had 2 cars full of stuff and probably $6,000, and that's it.
Man.
So.
All right. So talk about getting started, because when you start there, it's you.
Yeah, so there's no benefits. They don't even give you a computer. I didn't even know that. You're like, hey, you have to buy your own computer, bring it in. I was working for a senior agent. It was a great experience. He told me, he's like, we'll sell, we were selling office buildings at the time. He's like, we'll sell an office building a month. You'll make about what you were making in Memphis. After 7 months, I don't think we had sold 1 building. So I literally had $2,000. I was interviewing at Sports Corner, actually. I was going to bust tables on the weekend so I could stay in real estate. And I get a call from a family friend, and I'm literally about to have to move home, right? Get a call from a family friend, and he's like, hey, I'm looking for somebody in Chicago to sell commercial lighting and industrial supplies to oil and gas companies. Are you interested? And I was like, does it pay more than $8 an hour, which is about what I was making in real estate? And he's like, yeah. And I said, sure, I'll do it. So worked there for a while. After about a year, I figured out that they would pay for your MBA if you went back to school. So I was like, all right, I'm going to keep selling lighting and industrial supplies. I'm going to go back, get my MBA. About that time, too, I decided to buy my first piece of real estate in Chicago. So this is 2012, 2013, I think. I'd called up I was a licensed broker, obviously, because I had worked at Marcus, but I had no idea what I was doing. So I figured that out. So I called up a friend that was a broker. She actually still is. She works for the Low Group. And I said, find me the ugliest, nastiest condo you can find in Lincoln Park with 2 bedrooms. And sure enough, she found one that was built literally closer to the train than you're legal allowed to be, because the building was built before the train was in. You could literally reach out my window and touch the train tracks.
Love it.
So I moved in there. I had no money. It was the only time I ever carried credit card debt, because I was in so much debt. Because initially we were going to do 5% down. I was going to do 5% down. They wouldn't let me do it because the building was not owner occupied. There were 6 units in the complex, and they were all rentals. So I knew I was onto something, right? Hey, this will be a great rental someday, which is always my plan. But I had to put 20% down. So I ended up, scraping together every penny I had to do this. And, finally closed it. I had no cash. I was going to school part-time. Refinanced it at one point because rates dropped about 1,000 basis points. And I put it on 20-year money because what I could do is I could keep the payment about the same, but it would double the equity buy down into the principal. So refinanced it after about 6 months. And then I graduated from school. I knew I wanted to go back into real estate. So I called up a lender and was like, hey, what do I need to do? He's like, well, this is like 2 years later. He's like, well, what you need to do is you need to refinance your condo, do an equity out. Refi is the only way you're going to get, have enough money to do this. But you got to fix it up first. So I would go out and I get, I think it was 3 quotes at the time. And I needed hardwood floors and a new kitchen. And it was like 25 grand. And there is no way I can afford, 25 grand. Like, if I do that, I'm never going to be able to buy anything, right? And I didn't even know what I was going to buy. I just know I wanted to go buy apartment buildings. And I'm still working full time. So what I ended up having to do is, at the time, my old roommate and I had this business where we would basically arbitrage geography on Craigslist. So we'd drive out to the suburbs, buy everything we could, bring it back to the city and resell it. And one thing we were doing was selling tools. So I had all these tools, and I didn't even own like my own hammer at this point. So what I figured out is I could probably do the floors myself. So I got on YouTube, watched YouTube videos for like 2 weeks, figured out how to do the flooring, put in all the floors myself. It's a little crooked, but you can buy the pre-finished wood at Home Depot. You can do it yourself. I had to go out and buy an air compressor. I think I went on Crystal Lake and did that. So I was using all these used tools to do it. And then I had to do the kitchen. And what I figured out was you didn't have to quite rip out the whole kitchen because I had the granite and the backsplash, but the doors on the cabinets, an 80-year-old woman lived there, right? And she was super nice. It was great, but they were plastic. So what I figured out is you could reface it. So I went out, I got a couple quotes to, build these cabinet doors. It was like, I think it was like 10 grand at the time. There's no way I could afford that, right? Because if I do that, I have no money to go and buy an apartment building. So I got on YouTube and I watched, the same thing again. I watched all these videos on exactly how these guys were making these cabinet doors and figured out, there was a couple methods to do it. Went to Home Depot, tried 2 or 3. I think the first one I put on at the time collapsed, broke everywhere. And then after that, though, I figured out a method to do it. So I made 18 doors on my porch in Lincoln Park. I think my neighbors were about to kill me because I was out there with a router, cutting these doors out. Painted the whole kitchen, painted the doors on the porch white, and then refinanced it at the time.
Let's pull back here because these are the cool stories where it's
This is awesome.
Yeah, I got nothing. Like Lance is smiling over there right now. Like, yep, I'm gonna have a vanity soon. Like he's been working on his own unit for to save money. Like, what I want to pull out though is like you decided to go on a 20-year note.
Yeah.
Right, like that's interesting to me because and people, there's some people are like, no, refi till you die, never pay down. There's other people say, minimize your debt, and I fall probably somewhere in between. But man, if I'm at this age of my life, scrounging for every penny, probably taking the lowest payment possible.
Right.
It's like why did you do the 20 at that point in your life?
It was rates had dropped so much when I refinanced.
You were used to the payment already?
Yeah, I was used to the payment, and it was a double equity to buy down. And I figured it was the best way to, buy into the principal. Now, I'd like to tell you I had this grand plan that I was going to refinance someday, but at the time, I just thought it was a great idea to own more of the condo. I was like, oh, this would be great. I'll own it in 20 years. I'll cash flow it out and do all that. That was never the plan. It was just, hey, this makes sense. I can afford it. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. So did that. Got the kitchen done, did the doors, everything, refinanced it, pulled out, I think it was like 50 or 60 grand out of the condo. So now I had enough money where I could go buy something. So I started looking around, talking to a couple realtor friends, and, I had no idea what I was doing, right? Never bought anything, never really done anything. But I had a friend that I used to work with at Marcus, and he had just posted on Facebook that he bought a 4-unit on Southport Corridor. So I called him up, and I literally still have this on like a whiteboard because after I graduated from school, and I had like one of my ideas was like marijuana business, which I'm glad I didn't go into that. The other was like call the guys at Marcus.
Scale the Craigslist arbitrage.
Yeah. So I called him up and I said,
cheap weed in the suburbs.
No, you go opposite for that one. That city. Oh, you can 2-way the trip then. Bring the Craigslist in, bring the weed out. Like
weed out,
we actually,
right, yeah, man. Yeah. You can make a lot of money buying stuff in the suburbs when we're going to the city. So I called him up, and we go to lunch. And at the time, he had just started his own brokerage. It was Ed Liss and Matt Fritshaw. I called Ed. They just started Triton. This is like 2015, 2016. And I was like, hey man, let's go to lunch. Like I want to hear about what you're doing. And we go to lunch. And he brings me a couple of 2 flats, and he's like, hey, look at this. And I looked at him, I was like, no, man, like I want to do what you do. Like, show me how you're buying these buildings. Like, and at the time I thought he had a ton of money. I was thinking this guy must, and he probably does, but he's like, all right. So he starts going through it, and he tells me, he's like, this is what I do. He's like, it's FHA, 3.5% down, And then I'm the broker, and he owned the brokerage, so he gets the whole fee. And then he throws in the 10K credit at close. Doesn't ask the seller for anything, just cuts his closing costs in half. So, you know, if you know Ed, he's super fast at math, right? And I'm not. So he's sitting there looking at me, and I'm like calculating in my head. So I'm like, wait a minute. Because at the time, the FHA max was 720K. Okay, this is like 2018. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, so wait a minute. You just bought this 4-unit building for what, like 20 grand down or even less? And he's like, yeah, you know, like no, like nonchalant, like no problem. So I was like, oh man, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like that's the method. I was like, what's the catch? He's like, well, you have to live in it. And I was like, oh, that's no problem. Like, no big deal. So I called up the lender and I said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And they were like, all right, you know, you can do that, but you can't live in your condo. He's like, you should sell it. And I was like, I don't want to sell it. Like, I love the location. You know, I just built all these cabinets. Like, I'm never going to sell it.
I can touch the train.
Yeah, right, yeah. I can touch the train. Yeah, exactly. I was like, you know, I don't want to do that. So he's like, Dwight, well, you can't live there. So I called Ed back and I was like, hey man, you just bought this, you know, awesome building, Southport corridor. Do you have anywhere I can live until I find a deal with you guys? And he's like, yeah, man, sure. He's like, it's not done, but you're welcome to move in. So I signed this, like I still have it. It's a graduated lease agreement. I think the first month was $1,000. I move in. There's no, the kitchen's not done at all. So there's no kitchen. The bathroom's half done. And I move in, but it was great. It was probably one of the best things I ever did because I was in there. He was obviously there because it was FHA. And I got to meet all his contractors. I watched him kind of run this 4-flat, fix it up. The guys were in my unit every day. So I'd like pepper them with questions on how to do stuff. It was awesome. It was a great experience.
So you sold the condo?
No, didn't sell the condo.
You got
Kept
to keep
the
the
condo,
condo.
rented it out. I think I was making like $50 a month on it, and then the inducer and the furnace went out a year later, so I made no money on it.
You
The
still have
cash
that condo
flow-wise.
today?
Yeah, still have it today.
What are the numbers now? What are you getting
Now
for
it makes
rent first?
$1,000 a month.
How much?
$1,000 a month. Yeah, 2-bed, 1-bath, like North and Clybourne. So,
Man, that's all it takes. I know we had a nice little run up here, but like it's crazy.
but it
like,
didn't
the
make any
time.
money initially. Literally, I think I lost money the first year.
Yeah. I want to talk about everyone's looking to house hack, low money down. It sounds so great. And then people look at the numbers and they go, oh, I'm not cash flowing, or, oh, like I thought I'd make a 10% cash return.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, you're only putting 3% down. Your mortgage is super high. Rates are high.
Yeah.
There's PMI. There's everything else that goes along with that.
Right.
Like I feel like there's that expectation setting. You need to go in the mindset of, oh, I'm into this building for 20K and I'm going to own it forever.
I mean, think about it. I think a lot of people look at it the wrong way. It's like just, rough numbers. Let's say you buy a house for $100,000, right? You put $10,000 down. In 2 years, it's worth 110. You think to yourself, oh, I made 10%. No, you didn't. You just doubled your money. You put 10 down, you made 10, you doubled your money. It's the law of big numbers. I mean, it's the average person's most effective use of leverage is really what it is. And you can do that with these low money down programs. I mean, there's some sacrifices you have to make. You have to live in it. You have to deal with tenants, all that. But, talk about a way to compound wealth. There's no better method to do it right now.
Yeah. So. And then the downside is if you don't learn how to operate it, you have to respond to the bank. Right. You need, no matter what, you need to make that payment. You are setting yourself up for obligation. And as long as you are disciplined and can handle said obligation, it's borderline magical. Like it's silly how much it works.
If you're young though, like you say you need to live there, but like, you need somewhere to live no matter what anyways.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
just a short-term play.
And you've learned so much by living there. I mean, I meet these people at meetups all the time, and they're doing all these crazy financial models in Excel, cash on cash return. And that's important to know, understand. But really, if you're buying a 2-flat, read a book on construction so you understand exactly what's going on, and you don't get ripped off by some of these contractors. I mean, if you can't do a 2-flat on the back of a napkin, it's not a good deal.
Yeah, like
I mean, really.
If people are like, "Oh, am I going to get 1850 or 1900 for this rent?" It's like, I don't know. That parapet, those 20 grand.
Yeah, exactly. Like, understand the big expenses, and try to do a few things yourself, and you can really, that's a huge competitive advantage you have. So.
All right, so we get into this. You're living there.
Yep.
Keep going, because you've scaled nicely here.
Yeah, so I'm living there, living with Ed, learning a ton. We're searching MLS every day. Find a 4-unit up in, I think, your neighborhood actually, Jefferson Park. Go in. Couldn't get the rents to work out at the time. I think we needed $1,600 a unit to pass the cash flow. I think it's self-sufficiency test. Yeah, couldn't get it to work. Didn't work on the first try. So second try, we found a 4-flat in Lincoln Square, which I still have today. Got it to work. We went in. The guy was at $775. We offered $720. And at this point, I kind of realized I didn't know what I was doing. So I basically told Ed, I was like, "Hey man, you can have the fee. Just kind of teach me the ropes here, right? Teach me what's going on." So we go in for 720, settle at 725 with a 10K credit. End up closing on it in 2 months. It wasn't that easy, and I'm not gonna. Every deal has a story, right? You can go into tons of details. If you've ever done an FHA 4 flat, it is really hard.
Oh yeah, so you got self-sufficiency, which now the
yep.
5% down program
Doesn't require that.
Yeah,
right?
almost cannibalize FHA for that reason because there is no self-sufficiency. And for our listeners, just to give the quick rundown, self-sufficiency, someone correct me here, but they take the rents you're making, they take, I think, 75% of whatever that is, and it's got to cover your
basically
PITI.
3 units have to cover the total
expenses.
payment. And you have to remember on these FHA deals, you're paying about, well, back then it was about $450 in PMI. So you have to hit that nut and then also another unit's rent. They're really tough.
Correct.
There's only
with high taxes, high balance on the mortgage. Yes.
And so I still look at the MLS every day, and I see maybe there was one that came on in Albany Park like last week. I see maybe 1 or 2 deals a year that maybe would work for this program. But now I would definitely go with the 5%.
Yep.
So so got into it. I move into the worst unit, and the play here for me was always to, let's get it fixed up, let's get it refinanced, and let's, move back to the condo, right? I was dating a girl at the time, and my wife now, and, I want to move back to Lincoln Park. So I get in, this is like September we close. I think it was like end of August, September. And I'm in a mad dash to get this thing rented, right? Because the leasing season is ending, which is what I learned when I rented my condo out in December, that maybe December isn't the best time to rent, which I didn't know any of that, right?
And you sign them for a 12-month lease, so you get to do it again next year.
Right. Exactly. So I get these 2 units rented, and I'm like fire selling the price. It was a 3-bed, 1-bath. I think it was a $1,500. The other one was 3-bed, 1-bath. I'm at $1,500 too. So I get them rented right away. And then once I get them rented, what I'm doing is I don't think I left that place for 2 months. I'm doing all the work because I have no money because I put all my money down on it. So I'm doing everything that doesn't need a permit. Floors, walls, everything. I'm literally in the bathroom at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday watching YouTube videos on how to do stuff, trying to figure out, how to do drywall, paint the ceiling, all this, crazy stuff. So I get those 2 units done, get people to move in there. I'm finally can breathe. And I'm living on the 3rd floor, which is the worst unit. It literally hadn't been touched since the 50s. I had a bread box still in there. I didn't even know what a bread box was. My mom, so she's like, oh, it was a bread box. That's great. When I was a kid, I was like, that's awesome. So we get up there, and the bathroom was really bad. Basically, it was a total gut. It was all galvanized since the 50s. My contractors come in. Actually, still the guys I use to this day. They do everything that needs a permit. So they rip everything out. Put in all the new copper, and that was all I could afford at the time. So, they're ripping out the bathroom. There's a toilet in the basement. So I'm using the toilet in the basement, and I'm showering at Lincoln Square Athletic Club for literally 6 weeks. Like, that's it. So you had the club closed at 9. I have to be there at 8:45. I think the girl that worked the front desk thought I lived in my car or something. And I always just say,
so no workout, just pure shower.
No workout. It was the only shower I had. There's no shower in the unit because I ripped out the whole bathroom. Because I had my contractors run in, put in the copper and everything else. I'd never done a bathroom in my life. I did the whole bathroom. So, I'm putting up the hardy board, I'm tiling it, waterproofing, everything. And if you've never done that, and you're working a full-time W-2 job, it takes a long time. I mean, it took me 6 weeks to get the bathroom done. Luckily, I kept the running water in the kitchen, so I had that. But then after that, I ripped out the kitchen and did that all myself too. And if you ever move one of those cast iron tubs, I had to write a letter to my tenants. I was like, hey guys, I'm gonna break this thing apart tomorrow, so it's gonna be really loud. So I got up there with like a 5-pound hammer, and I'm just pounding on this thing to break it up, carrying it down in buckets so I can get it out of there.
Yeah.
A little shards.
Have you ever had like I've bought stuff. I got a demo core where everything's been stolen, the copper, whatever, and you see they move the tub like 2 feet, and they're like, yeah, this guy stays.
Right.
They're taking everything else. You see they tried, and it's like, nope.
Right. I end up selling. You can sell the claw feet on eBay. I think I sold those for like $100.
The other thing's the laundry sinks in the basement.
Yeah.
Those are a big show.
Yeah. So got that one done finally. I met my girlfriend at the time, now my wife. She was coming over, and after
is she cool with all this? Like you're the random guy showering.
So she is she's from the Czech Republic, and let's say she grew up very financially challenged. Kind of put herself through college. I met her, and she came over on once I had the bathroom done, and it was funny because I didn't have a door in the bathroom, and after the third. After the 3rd date, at this point you're being super nice to each other, or whatever, right? At the 3rd date, she texts me. She's like, "Hey man, Dan, I really love what you're doing. Like, I really it's great. Could you please put a door in the bathroom?"
Fair.
Yeah, totally fair. We still laugh about it to this day. So got that one done. In about a year, refinanced it. Worked out well. It was great because when you refinance those FHA4 units, what it does, it cuts the PMI. So you refinance it. Now you're on 20-year money. You obviously get to the number you need, and your payment drops. So now you're really cash flowing it well.
If and only if you can increase the value.
Yeah,
right. Like that's the big.
Yeah,
like,
we did,
a lot of people just think they'll buy the building.
Right.
And
No, it's not that easy. Yeah, I mean, we did kitchens, baths. I mean, I did everything, and then I did all the work on the third floor. I mean, we ripped up all the carpet. I got really lucky. It was one of those deals where it was like Friday night. I go to Home Depot, and carry the sander up the stairs myself, sand it all day Saturday. I have to carry it back down, return it to the rental desk. It was a mess, and then everything you own is covered in dust.
Yes,
oh yeah, it sucks.
You're living there,
And you find those little things of dust for years.
Yeah, for
Like,
years.
you missed that spot. You missed that spot.
Exactly. So, and then my guys I still use this day come over, the contractors, and they're like looking at me because the floor's all wavy. They're like, did you do this? I'm like, yeah. It's like your first one. They're like, I can tell. Got that one done. This guy in the studio stayed. That one actually still did pretty well. And they had built a studio after it was only about 10 years old. So ended up not doing any work there, kept it, and was still able to refinance it. Refinanced it, rented out the unit I was in, and moved back to Lincoln Park, back to my condo. Got the tenants decided to leave, so I moved back. It was great. This is probably December of 19, and I called up Ed again, the guys at Triton. I said, hey, I'd love to do this again. Maybe not as much work this time. I don't think I can do it. I'm working a lot more. During all this, I'm traveling 2 or 3 days a week too. So it's like, when you're doing like gut rehab and you live in it, when you travel, it's like a vacation because you're like, man, like clean sheets, nice shower, I'm showing up to work and like, you're obviously people at work, you got paint all over your arm. like, what are you doing on the weekend? Just working on a bathroom.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm like, they're like, oh, do you want to travel? I'm like, man, I'd love to go somewhere. Like, I'd love to get out of this place.
Des Moines, sign me up, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Anywhere.
I'm in like California, everywhere. It was great. That's the only time in my life I really love to travel.
Wait, so like I want to pull out though, because everyone's like, oh, like this real estate's my escape. Like this is I'll just buy this and like everything will be passive and like. No, like this is what happens.
This is full contact sport, like you guys always say. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a lot.
It's all possible, but like you gotta make the decision to do it. Like put yourself out there, take on the risk, and then go execute.
Yeah.
Well, looking back at, we'll stop the story right there. I know there's more, but like looking back, like would you have done it any differently? Is there anything you would have done different? Like what do you think about when you reflect on that? I mean, that's a great story, man.
No, I don't think so.
Door to the bathroom earlier. Third date is long.
Third date, yeah. She was super cool about it the third date. Then she finally texted me. She's like, dude, you got.
I had a similar thing. I moved into my new construction house, and I didn't know you didn't get blinds. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't need blinds. I'm a guy. Who cares? If they want to see me naked, that's their problem. So I got the similar text of like, hey, listen, I'm not staying the night there anymore if you're going to leave me until you get blinds.
Yeah, no, I don't think I do anything. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. I flooded a bathroom. I put a nail through the copper pipe. I mean, I made every mistake.
My drywall guy's done that.
I mean, I got a little happy with the nail gun, but no, I don't think so. I learned a lot. I put in a really bad tenant. I had no idea what I was doing. I was so nervous that I overlooked some stuff on the screening the first time I did it. I wish I would have done that differently. But no,
a miss or just out of desperation you took a chance?
This was just a dumb mistake. I thought credit score was a little low, and I thought they'd pay, and it didn't turn out that well. So.
Sometimes that was my first story too, but sometimes it's like you remember that first story every time you actually review
and I'll never make that
forever.
mistake again. Yeah, because it haunted me for years.
It's like the winning sports team. Like sometimes they just got to lose to know how it feels to lose in order to actually make it all the way to the championship.
And I do think that when you do this, it's kind of like burning the boats, right? Because you move into this place, you've got to get it done. I mean, you don't have an option. There is nothing you can do besides work on it because you're there every day. So, if you're gonna house hack, that's what's great about it is. You don't have really, there's nothing else you can do. If you don't get it done.
We've had a few guests on here that have said something similar to that, where it's like, listen, once I closed, I was all in. There's no fucking turning back at that point. And there's certain people that thrive off of that pressure. And I feel, though, that characteristic to be able to thrive under that type of circumstance is almost necessary to do a lot in real estate. Because a lot of people feel that pressure one time, like, oh, fuck it, I'm not going to do it anymore. But like that is one of the probably the indicators of someone that becomes successful or not is the ability to, when your back's against the wall, like no other option than the boat's been burned. I got to make this happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then when you get that first mortgage payment, because you never had debt that big in your life, where you're just like, whoa, It's a lot of money.
Yeah, that'll work
Making
out.
that mortgage payment's a muscle. Like, it's like it hurts. You get nervous. You're afraid. Like,
Right.
but eventually it just becomes like, all right, it's okay. Like, I can do this.
Yeah. All right, so we're still house hacking here,
Yeah,
right?
still
Like we're
house
still
hacking,
like,
yeah.
all right, this is
I mean,
great. I'm
there's
showering
no-
at the gym. Girlfriend hasn't left me. This is
Yeah,
not-
girlfriend hasn't left me. It was great. So yeah, got it done. Refinanced it. You know, obviously still live there. Refied it. Literally a year later, moved out. And this is probably December, maybe November of 19. So I'm back at the condo. You know, I call up the guy, my Ed at Triton. The guy said, hey, you know, I'd love to do this again. Let me know if you find anything interesting. So he texted me, I think it was January of 20. And he's like, hey, I found this really interesting deal in Bucktown. Are you interested? And, you know, I call up the lender right away. I'm like, hey, can you get this done? I'm going to do an FHA deal again. Or, you know, he's like, yeah, well, I think we can probably get this done, but you can't live in your condo. So at the time, one of the tenants I put in ended up moving out. It was in December. They left in December. So I moved there right away. And I said, okay, you know, I'm all in. Like, I want to do this again. It's, you know, there's no better way, like we said, to kind of utilize leverage here. So whatever I have to do. So I moved back to Lincoln Square. You know, the guy that really made all the money on this is the mover. Because he's the same mover every time. Like, he's just killing it at this point. Moved back to Lincoln Square, and then I get a call, and this is like
Hold
January.
on. He builds his own cabinets, does his own floors, but he hires a mover.
Yeah, I hate moving.
Dude, moving sucks.
Moving sucks,
I'm
man.
with you.
Yeah, no way. So we get up there. I get it to Lincoln Square. You know, I move in, and I get a call, and they hadn't done the appraisal yet, but they I guess I don't know exactly what happened, but they looked more seriously at the numbers, and they were kind of like, hey, this is not going to work. Like, rates are too high. You're not going to get there. And this is probably February of 20. And so I'm the Lincoln
Well,
Square.
I know where rates are going though.
Yeah.
This is
yeah. So yeah. So and I'm in Lincoln Square. I'm like, man, you know, I live in Lincoln Park. All right, it's all right. So we'll find something else. You know, keep looking. We'll find something else. I get a call, and this is like March, right? And you know, this is like kind of when I don't want to say anything positive about COVID because a lot of people died. It was, you know, COVID was awful. But you know, this is the time when, you know, we're watching. My wife and I are on CBC. We're watching the spreads, and the spreads are back on, you know, fixed income where they were in 2008, and we're like, oh, you know, that's not good. And then about the same time, Powell just opens the floodgates and basically says he's going to buy anything and everything, which, you know, kind of saved the U.S. economy. And I get a call from the lender the next day, and the lender's like, you know, one, are you still interested? Because, you know, at this point, like, fear's at the peak, right? You know, the Dow was at like 19 or whatever.
Yeah, I closed on right around this time, like March 19th or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I remember having a closing downtown. I have a picture of me and Chance just standing on Wacker. Like, we were just standing there,
Empty.
no cars,
Right.
no nothing. Like,
Yeah.
took me 10 minutes to get downtown, and it was, you know, that became like the norm for a while. But I remember
Right.
the first time. The title company, like, one lady had to come in to let us to close. I was like, should I really be buying this? Like, they're opening the title company for me.
Exactly.
I'm the only one here. Like,
Yeah, so you know, and I'm scared, and you know, in my head I'm thinking like, all right, worst case, like there's an open basement in this building, Lincoln Square. I'm like, worst case, I can move in the basement, I can shower at the gym, which actually wasn't true
I'm
because
used to this.
they shut the gyms down. So yeah, I went ahead, I did the deal. It ended up working FHA, and the only reason it worked because I think the FHA rate of 30-year money at that point was like 2.65 or something.
Jesus.
It was like, you know, next to nothing. You know, rates dropped like 1,000 basis points overnight. So got that one done. You know, when I say got it done, it took another 3 months. I mean, I was literally going over there. There's bars in the windows. You know, to get these FHA deals done, there's all kinds of ins and outs. So we're going over there. You know, I'm taking the bars off the windows, using all the tools I acquired in the last project. All that. I'm doing everything to get this thing done. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, from Crystal Lake, exactly. You know, end up getting it done. And, you know, at this point, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, we're living in this. You know, it was great. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath. It's huge in Lincoln Square. So if we get this done, obviously we have to move in. So we move in, and we move in the worst unit. I was like, oh, you know, we got to save money. We got to live in the worst unit. And it was over FHA. So I put so much money down, I literally had like nothing left. So we had to we lived in the second smallest unit there. So it was like basically a 1-bed with like a half office. It's like a big closet basically. So we moved in there, and my wife called it like the tiny house. And it was really tight. Moved in there. We did I did a bunch of cosmetic updates basically to this one. It wasn't a huge rehab or anything. The worst part was though, the month we got it, the roof leaked. It was really bad. So I put a new layer on the roof, did a bunch of cosmetic updates, added a washer dryer. The connections were already there. Got the rents up. You know, it was more like a management cosmetic kind of play. Then, you know, we lived there for a year, refinanced it, which was great because it was kind of when rates bottomed out. So, you know, that one was on 30-year money. And then at the time, my wife, we weren't married yet, girlfriend. She's kind of like,
I can see why.
yeah,
I'm gonna defend her for a second. She's playing along.
She's like,
she's a trooper.
She's watching me do this, and she's kind of like, hey, we're not married yet. She's like, I don't want to buy anything that I can't handle myself, but she's like, why don't you find me something we can house hack together, like a nice condo that needs some work, and you can do all the work, right? So we found another condo in North and Clybourne, kind of right where mine was. It needed. Like the whole upstairs with carpet, so it needed all hardwood floors. It had the third bedroom was pretty rough. It needed some drywall, some new floors in there. So we, buying that. She used the 5% down program. I was the broker, and then we had a 10K credit because there was some roof issues and other things that needed to be fixed. So she got into that for it was like 15 grand or something. We used the brokerage fee to buy all the wood for the second floor. So I did 900 square feet of hardwood floor. I put those in. While we were there, I think the neighbors were gonna kill me. I thought it would take a weekend. I think it took me a month. So I'm up there sawing every day. No idea what I'm doing. Got that done. We didn't refinance that because it was I think it's at 265 or something on 30-year money because it was kind of the peak of when our rates plummeted. So at this point, you got enough units now. It's like we're basically living for free and we're cash flowing the other ones pretty well. So I called the guys at Triton. I said, hey, I'm looking for something else. If you guys find anything that's interesting, anything would work FHA, let me know. So about a month before we go on our honeymoon, or 2 months.
Real quick, one thing that other listeners have run into, and I want to talk about, is the debt to income ratio as you continue to acquire properties and don't go the commercial route.
Yep.
Right. Like for someone like myself, commercial, they don't care. But like when you're doing FHA or when you're doing quote unquote, traditional residential, your DTI starts getting thrown off, even if you're cash flowing the other buildings, because you need to be at 45 or 50%.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Like if the PTI on the building is $4,000, and you're like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm cash flowing. I'm at 5, so I'm cash flowing 1,000.
Right.
But that's 80% DTI.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Is the W-2 just that well? Like, how are you continuing to do it?
The W-2 was good. The W-2 was good. So I was able to do one more is what they told me. They're like, you can do one more.
So you were up against this.
Yeah. So I was up against it. It was tight. It was really tight. So they found we were at basically North and Clybourne. They found a building on Kenmore. It was a 4-unit. And we tried to go FHA on it and it didn't work. And what we ended up having to do is they called me like it's in pretty rough shape. I was like, whatever. The location's perfect. I don't care. I'll take it. Didn't work FHA. But at the time, A&M had launched a program for 10% down. They were like
before the 5% really came down.
So I didn't even know it existed. And in hindsight, I should have gone back and done that initially. So they had this 10% down program. So end up doing that with the tax prorations and everything else. We were able to get that and close. We went on our honeymoon. We came back. We rented out the condo we were in, got that one rented, and then we were going to move in there. I had a crew working on it, and it was in rough shape. Like the toilet in the first 1 year wasn't on the flange, so every time the guy flushed the toilet, it literally just flooded into the basement, was draining out. I mean, I'm talking, it was pretty bad. So I had my crew over there, everything that needed a permit they were working on, and they were supposed to have our unit done. We got back from honeymoon, we were going to move in. I had a gas line break at the building in Bucktown. So I basically took the crew, put them over there to fix that.
And you're on your honeymoon there? Well, this is...
Yeah, I'm on my honeymoon. My wife's ready to kill me because I'm on the phone the whole time, right? And the guys, I didn't tell my guys, Ukrainian guys, and they're awesome. I didn't tell them where I was going. So they had no idea that when they call me at 8 a.m., it's 4 in the morning, I'm in Hawaii or whatever. So my wife's sleeping, I'm hungover, answering the phone, all right, do this. I'll put the order in Home Depot, pick up the stuff today, all that. So they go anyway to work on this gas line job in Bucktown, and they can't get our unit done. So we move into this, we're house hacking again, right? So another house hack, Lincoln Park. We move into this unit. There's no kitchen and there's no bathroom in unit yet because they haven't finished it yet. So my wife and I literally are sleeping upstairs. We have to walk all the way to the first floor to use the bathroom, and there's no kitchen. So she's ready to murder me. So this is we've been married for 2 weeks, right? It was nuts. And we have no money because we just spent all on this building, and we're putting everything into fixing it up because it's in such rough shape. So what we had to do was basically anything that needed a permit, we had my crew do, and then everything else we're doing. So we get married, and literally 2 weeks after we're married, or after the honeymoon, we're there. She painted literally the whole building. I did all the trim, all the floors, everything. We didn't leave that thing for, I don't know, we worked on it every night and weekend for probably a year. I finally got it done, but it was huge. Windows, everything.
At any point, was it like, dude, this is not worth it? Like, was there a serious discussion of like?
I think I was always like, yeah, this is great. It's always wanted to do. Yeah, she was. There was a few days where, yeah, she just disappeared. She's like, I've had enough. And like, trust me, she's awesome. She's such a sport for putting up with this. But yeah, it was tough. I mean, she's got this like, nice corporate job, works in finance. And she didn't know she's coming home. She's painting walls every night. Like. So, but it was the only way we could do it. It was the only way we could pull it off. Because it was just, it needed so much work, and we just couldn't afford to pay for everything that needed to be done. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right, so what's the end? Like, where are you at? Because we've moved back and forth. I've lost track. Like, where are you at right now?
So right now we're at that's 15 doors.
Okay, so we got 15 doors in nice areas.
Yeah, this is last year at about this time. And we're, my wife's pregnant at the time last year, and we're like, all right, let's do one more, right? And the stipulation always was, hey, I want, let's find something really nice that doesn't need to work. She's done doing work. She's like, I'm having a baby, like enough with the, no bathroom, no bedroom kind of stuff. Like that's over. Like no more house, like pure house hacking. So I was like, all right, so we'll find a nice, maybe like a 3-unit somewhere that maybe 2 units that need work and 1 unit that's kind of already done that we can live in. We found the perfect deal. We found this awesome unit. We actually live there in Bucktown. It's awesome. And needs, there's basically, it's one master kind of owner suite above with 2 smaller units under it that probably, in my estimate, needed about 20 grand a door. And I wasn't gonna do any work this time. I was done. I was traveling more. I'm traveling 3 days a week. Like I just, eventually you burn out. You kind of losing your mind after a while. So we're doing the 5% down program. And we get a 3% credit because there's some foundation issues, which, I had my guys look at. They're like, oh, yeah, we can fix it. It's going to be expensive, but we'll fix it. And then I'm the broker. So we're getting into this thing for next to nothing, right? It's awesome. I'm all excited. Like, yeah, this is great leverage. The payment's going to be pretty high, but, whatever. So we're 3 days before closing. And then I get the, HR email. Hey, we want to have a quick meeting. Never good, right? I'm traveling, get the HR email. So I get laid off. I get the call, and they were great. The company was great. The HR was just doing their job, and it was funny because we're in the meeting and they're going through like the Cobra and everything. And in my head, I'm just like, oh man, I need 3 days. And I was like, can you guys just give me 3 more days? Like I got this deal coming up. Can I just close? And they're like, no, we can't do it. So I get off the phone with them. I get laid off, and the first call I make is the lender. And I'm like, hey, I just don't cancel it yet. Like, I think I can maybe scrounge together enough money. Like, I made some dumb bets in the market. Like, I think we can sell some stuff and do some other things. We've got a HELOC on a couple condos. And then I called the attorney and told her the same thing. So we end up getting it done. They were able to, we had to put a ton of money down, and we're basically like, basically we closed, and after like an hour after we close, I'm online, I'm pulling personal loans from like every website that'll give me any money. So I did that, and yeah, we were able to close. We got it, and obviously I've got a lot of time now, so I did all the work. I had my guys do the plumbing, pull the permits for the copper. But I ended up doing all the work on both units with all the time. So we got lucky. Both the tenants moved out below us. And end up we were able to increase the rents about $1,000 a month, and we kind of took it from there. So we live there now. But yeah, I ended up doing everything. So floors, kitchens, everything. I was doing myself on this one. So
I love that got laid off. Oh, I got more time.
That's an entrepreneur mindset.
Yeah.
Oh man, this work shit just got in the way before.
Yeah. Finally, been waiting for this call.
So
yeah.
you decided to become an entrepreneur though at that point. Like you didn't go back.
Well,
to
I always
W2.
wanted to do real estate. I mean, it's always what I wanted to do.
Yeah, we could tell.
But the W2 held you back in a way from like your true aspirations.
Exactly, right. But it's like you kind of get hooked on the W2. It's great, monthly income.
You wouldn't have been able to do this without it.
No,
it served
exactly.
And it served an absolute. It's not just burn. It served a huge purpose for you.
It was a great job. I learned a ton. I got to travel. I got to see a lot of things. And, work with some really smart people. It was awesome. But this is kind of what I always wanted to do. And we had talked about it before. We kind of said like, hey, you can't travel 3 days a week if we have a kid and she's working. Like it's just not going to work. So. But yeah, it all worked out. Obviously I would have maybe planned it a little differently in some ways, but it all worked out. So,
yeah. Let's talk about the license too, because having your license, you mentioned multiple times rolling it in, and then also
reinvest it.
Yeah, and also just it's more of an intangible, but like the connections you made.
Yeah.
Ed, Matt, might not even stumbled across it? Like,
100%.
just talk about how valuable that
without
was.
those guys, I mean, without, kind of following Ed around and listening to everything he does and, getting his advice, I would never be sitting here, like 100%. And it's funny because, at the time when I had the job at Marcus, I remember thinking how dumb I was for leaving this job in Memphis, making 70 grand a year or whatever, and moving up here. And basically I was packing beers. I mean, it's like you move up here, but you can't do anything because you have no money. So it's like, you go to the bars with your friends, you got like natty lights in your pocket. Like, I had no money. I couldn't do anything. Like I was taking the bus to the train. Like for me, like taxi at the time was a luxury. Like I was broke, right? And at the time, I remember walking every day because I had to take the bus to the train and then walk to the office. Every day on that walk, I think how dumb I was for, being basically destitute. But like now in hindsight, it's the smartest thing I ever did. Like, maybe not the smartest, but it was, it was really smart because the connections I made there are huge. And like I still, those guys still hold my license to this day. So, but yeah.
Yeah. What's next?
So we're doing third-party management, and I've got some investors now. Kind of, that's really what I've been focused on recently. Is I've got a couple of buddies that they're kind of seeing what I've done, and they said, hey, let's go do kind of bigger deals. So I think the construction background is huge because, I've done a lot of work myself. Now I can kind of look at something and GC it and, really understand the ins and outs of what needs to be done. Like when I traveled, like I used to walk around, you have time to kill when you travel. I think you used to travel, so you probably know. I used to go to Home Depot and I'd walk around and I try to memorize the prices on everything because then I figured I could price stuff out in my head better when I was looking at different deals.
Yeah.
So like vanities and, all that kind of stuff. So if you figure, you double it, that's what labor cost. So.
Yep. What are you staying in like specific areas?
Yeah, so we'll just stay on the north side of the city. We like Lincoln Square a lot right now. We're looking there. And really anywhere we can get the numbers to work. I mean, really it's all math. I mean, the last deal I did wasn't great. The math didn't work out, but that was, like my wife said, we need a place to live and stop, using your calculator and everything. But yeah, so it's all just, what works. And, you can find stuff. I mean, it's tough, right? But rates are still high. They've come down a little bit, but there's still things that work. I mean, it's a lot of value add. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say like specifically, how are you looking to make anything pencil? Right, because the days of just finding something in MLS.
No,
you got to reposition the thing one way or another.
Yeah. So it's all value add. So it's got the kitchen, got the bathroom, new floors, add washer dryer. Assuming the water service is there. I mean, that's what kills us right now is we're looking at these and pulling the permits just to get the water service upgrade is $20,000. So. And you got to have, if you're operating A areas, you need washer dryer and unit. I mean, it's almost required, especially if you want to push the rents. So,
yeah, it's nuts. And I've said this before. There's people who out in the burbs like, why is it so expensive? Like, you have the CDOT permit.
Yeah.
You have a permit for the tap.
Right.
You can't just jet it. You got to do the whole thing.
Right,
you got to trench the whole thing. You're in charge of the concrete. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It adds up. The plumber's not dicking you around like that.
Right, exactly.
It adds up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just in everything too. It's like just I think we're seeing a slowdown now, but I mean, I can tell you, like when we did the 4-unit in Lincoln Park, we had to do all new windows, and we waited like 8 months between the windows, and the prices went up like 20%.
Windows were bad.
It was
at
crazy.
That point,
I remember like I thought the contract. I thought he was like, I was like, are you sure these numbers right? He's like, yeah, man. He's like, this is the number I got. Like, I was like, wow. Like,
I remember the porch quotes that were coming on at that point.
I actually remember a few guys like honoring stuff like that, and I was like, hey, like, there's no way you're making money. Right,
right.
Lumber has just gone up 50%.
Exactly.
Like,
you walk around Home Depot, the prices of copper. I mean, everything. I mean, I was looking at like window seal the other day, like even silicone. I mean, it's doubled in 5 years. Like it's like $12. It's crazy. So
yeah, we're doing a job right now. We actually originally we were modeling after my house was actually the one Chris did for me. We're like, oh, it's very similar. And if we would have done that, we would have been like $120K off on the rehab. Because we're like, all right, that's what it was 3-4 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
Now what do we have to add to it?
Right.
And then we went down like line by line, kind of like just the high level, and we're like, oh geez, it's literally like a lot more.
It's crazy.
So all right, you said the north side of Chicago. You're sticking around here. Outlook on Chicago.
Oh, positive. I mean, we've got our problems, but like I always tell people when they ask me, you've got a transportation system you can't duplicate. You've got water that is basically all you're ever going to need with Lake Michigan. And you've got a population that, you're basically, I think the article was in Cranes yesterday, the population is still growing. It's kind of the center point of the Midwest. I mean, like I said, I came here from Memphis. Like anyone in the Midwest, all my friends eventually moved here after college. If you want to live in a big city that's still semi-affordable, it's the best option. And if you're in real estate and you're trying to get in, we have more 2 to 4 unit buildings than any place in the country. So I mean, that's an advantage for you right there. If you think you don't want to start, I mean, you've got an advantage right there ahead of anyone.
That's the most
Anywhere
overlooked
else.
one. We had Victoria on, who moved here from Texas just because of that.
Right.
So like we're bigger, right? Like we're a bigger city. And then 25%, and then percentage wise, it's like the highest. So it's 25% of a huge housing stock is 2 to 4 units. Like that's insane.
Have you heard-
People don't get to do that elsewhere.
I've heard this, but I haven't read about it yet, that they're talking about it, or they're in the process of waiving property taxes for anyone that's living in a house for 30 years in order to keep people
really?
here. So if
I did
your
not know
parents
that.
lived in your place 30 years, they would not pay property tax anymore.
That's just going to make the market supply's already low. That's going to make it even lower.
It will,
Those people,
yeah.
the people who would have moved to Florida stay and like.
I think the one thing though that does concern me, and like kind of the elephant in the room with Chicago though, is rent control. I think we don't think about or talk about that enough. If you look at New York, what's happened there, I mean, there's some interesting policies, but that's the only thing that kind of concerns me. But I think long term though, usually what you see with rent control, if you study in other markets, is it usually doesn't work out the way they think it does, and they have to retract on something. But there's always different things that could happen because of that.
Well, the important point here is we can't let the cat out of the bag. We can't let that. So that's the problem. Once it gets out,
right.
then you have all these other unintended consequences ultimately from all the different cities that start doing stuff. But it's right now stopping that law in the state from letting the individual municipalities make the change. So that's why, whether it be NSPC or MBOA or any other groups, like when you guys hear about that stuff, like we got to all be on the same page to fight
I mean, I
that.
think if you want to look at it, just the facts, look at Austin right now. Rents are down 20%, and it's because of supply. They just let them build whatever they want, and and I'm not saying there has to be no laws at all, but if you increase supply, rents will go down. I mean, developers will build.
That is not opinion. Like that is
Yeah, it's
economic.
fact.
Like,
Yeah,
it's data. Like this is.
I know you follow him, but what's Jay Parsons?
Parsons,
on?
oh,
He's
he's
my
so good.
favorite person on LinkedIn. Like it's just the data there is awesome. So
Yeah, absolutely. Like and that was the same. That was a post from like 2-3 days ago. The one about Austin. Like
Yeah.
it's this. Yes, let us build.
Yep.
Like you'll bring more supply to the table. So all right, we ready to wrap?
Ready to wrap?
Let's do it.
All right. What's your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do this? All this grinding, this hustle.
I think for me, it's I was never the smartest or the best athlete in school, but I was always the guy that kind of won the team award or whatever you want to call it. The guy I'd always show up early and be there late, and I think that's been huge. And I think as you get later on in life and you get into working years, I think that helps a lot, because if you just show up, it's a big part of it.
Yeah. What's one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
Maybe this is just kind of general, but figure out what your competitive advantage is and then figure out how to leverage it. I think a lot of people focus on what they're bad at, and they shouldn't. They should focus on what they're really good at and then figure out how to leverage that, or what they have an advantage in that maybe other people don't.
Ooh, I love that. We never had that.
Yeah, it's
that
cool.
never answer. So, what do you do for fun?
I used to be really into rock climbing, but my wife kind of shut that down because a lot of my friends got hurt. So no, I traveled. I've got and there's nothing to brag about. I have 1,200 Marriott nights, lifetime Marriott nights. So just for me, being home with my daughter every night is awesome. I love hanging out with my daughter. That is just being home every night is awesome. So I really enjoy that.
Cool. What is a good book, podcast, or self-development activity you'd recommend to our listeners?
Book, if I have two. One is How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think that's timeless.
Yeah.
My actually New Year's resolution a couple years ago was to read that every year. And then there's a book called Snowball about Warren Buffett. If you want to compounding and investing or just kind of playing the long game, I don't think there's a better book out there.
40 hours long. Audible.
Yeah.
But
You gotta go Audible. Yeah.
It's a long one.
Gotta commit, baby.
There's the
But it's
audio
good because
version.
it tells his whole life story in
Yeah,
that book too.
yeah.
So it's kind of a little both. So
Yeah, exactly.
all right. Other than yourself, name a valuable resource for other Chicago real estate investors you can refer to.
My attorney, Jen Pritchall. Her email is jen@gotocourt.com, and she's awesome. She's written more extension letters on my behalf than anyone should ever have to. So I owe her probably twice or 3 times what I paid her. She's awesome.
That is one of the best emails I've ever heard.
Oh yeah, some good marketing there.
she's done a lot for me. So.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much. This has been very entertaining. You've also provided a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
Just reach out if you have questions. I respond. You can link to my email. I respond to all my emails. I'm happy to help anyone that's also trying to get into house hacking. I'm going to meet people all the time at meetups, and I say hey, call me. I've done a few house hacks. I love to help you, and people never respond. It's you got a decent resource, use it.
Yeah.
So
Cool. All right. Chicago Fact. Who's sponsoring? Who we playing for?
All right, we're playing for Erica Gallagher. So, Erica, if myself or Daniel gets this question right, you get a $50 gift card brought to you by today's sponsor, Josh Stiglman from State Farm. And you can find his information, Josh's information, on Build Your Team at straightupchicagoinvestor.com.
All right. So we were all at the NSBC event yesterday,
Yep.
the three of us, at the time that this is being recorded. We had a question about the Chicago flag, about the stars. So I'm going to ask you, the blue stripes on the Chicago flag represent Lake Michigan and the Chicago River. What do the white stripes represent? All right, you need multiple choice?
Yes.
All right, let's get you some multiple choice here. All right, so they represent the three original founders of Chicago, the northwest and south side of the city, the three original Indian tribes that occupied the land, or nothing. They're just background for the blue.
that's a tough one.
What do you want to pick?
I'd almost say the last one. Background? I don't know.
Oh, so I would have said my two would be either Indian tribe or the northwest south. I would say northwest or south side.
Ooh, you got it. There you go. Had to dig deep there. I was worried for you.
Here.
That was when I thought you were gonna like some of them I write, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna rattle it off right away. I thought that was one of them. Way to grind it out, though.
Yeah. I was motivated by our guest today, dude. There's no
Yeah,
dude.
no.
I gotta wear that on my clothes all the time. I gotta figure it out. All right, Erica, you get a $50 gift card brought to you by today's sponsor, Josh Stiglman from State Farm. And again, you can find his information at straightupchicagoinvestor.com under Build Your Team. So, Daniel, thanks for coming on. Tom, thank you as always, listeners. If you, I'm going to throw this out here right now, even though we don't officially have it posted this day. Go to our website, sign up for a 5-year anniversary party.
This won't air for like 4 or 5 weeks. We're good. If we don't have it by then, that's on us.
So go to straightupchicagoinvestor.com, right big, boom, bang on the cover page there, on the homepage there. You'll have sign up. We're going to have a 5-year podcast anniversary party in Elmhurst. It's going to be a good time, and we have an awesome venue, and it's going to be an awesome group of people, and we're excited to have everyone out there. So sign up today.
Nice.
Daniel, thank you. Tom, thank you. Listeners, we'll see you next week.